had a friend of
Remodeling in progress.
I just had a friend of mine tell me his daughter's getting married and they live in Des Moines, so I'll be coming down to Des Moines,
Oh,
but
you'll have
not
to
till
let me
May.
know.
Okay, I'll do it.
I just finished my fifth wedding in 5 weeks on Sunday, so I'm ready to be done with weddings for a little bit.
You've been married 5 times?
Not me, not me. So
They get expensive.
yes, they do. Well, I think I shared last call my laundromat caught on fire and I lost two of my suits last week. So had to scramble to do that. So
Oh my gosh, Travis.
see here. And Art, I think I shot you a text with this, but I'll have to jump at 12:30 for a quick meeting. But I'll be able to be on, I think, until up to that point. So
We might be done at 12:30.
okay, perfect.
I'll ask I'll ask you for a benediction.
There you go.
Travis, you said you were coming up the next time too.
Yep, I've taken the 2 Thursdays off for the next two in person, so I'll probably drive up that morning and then head back later in the afternoon after that. So
Wow. Okay. Great. I don't know if Brian Brown can come with you, but it would be great if he could, but we'll see.
yeah, I'm definitely open to making that happen if he's interested in catching a ride.
Now you will be having a meeting with Brian Brown and Rob Best and Michael Hurst soon. Do you know when that is?
I do not know yet. When I texted Rob, he said he was going to get with Michael and see what worked with their schedule. So kind of just waiting to hear back when that works for everybody.
And they are developing a timeline with Ben Page of the
Yep,
city
yep,
for how this whole thing is going to progress.
yep,
And they're working on that timeline, and that's a good one
yep.
because the city is coming up with the money,
Hmm.
and Hope is coming up with the fields, and it's going to be a very interesting combination.
Yeah,
Now,
I'm looking
you're,
forward to it for sure.
you're putting a map together. Where's your map? What does your map include? Does it include what they're talking about?
Yeah, it would go down to that area. I wanted to make sure that it did. So it's a good, yeah, it's probably a good 2 miles long or north south and
Good.
maybe a mile wide or so there. So it includes some of the schools I've already been in contact with
That's
um
great.
and then those guys. So
That's important.
yep,
That's important.
yep.
They don't
So
have that map, so you're providing a great map for them.
yeah, and I know I said, Grandview and Drake weren't on those maps. They were just outside, but they do work with neighborhoods and such. And they're actually just met with somebody at Grandview in the office of the president, and she sees their Views Forward project, and they provide tickets and community gardens and things along those lines. Habitat for Humanity builds things like that. So
Great, great. Morning, Trent.
Morning, how are you? Well,
Good, 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 good. Thank you. And Kenneth,
hi, good morning.
just up the street.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes. Recognize the office. Now, Akeem says he doesn't have the link. Akeem.
Well, you sent it out. I can send it to him again, but you sent it to the.
Yeah, I did. Okay. Could you send it out?
Sure.
That'd be great. You guys all got the link, right? Akeem.
Do we have his right,
Mm-hmm.
his email address? Is that the one?
I don't know. I'm sure it is.
Maybe that's his name, Cubae.
Yeah, could be. I think it could be.
I'm gonna text him and let him know that I just went out again. See if we can.
Just sent it out again. Okay. Now Marquise said he could not come this morning. He had something come up. I don't know about the others, but we're going to move ahead. I'll wait for Akeem to see if he can get on, and then we would go from there. Oh, who's that? Who just came on?
Keith.
Marquise?
Yes, sir. How you doing?
Oh, you said you couldn't come.
I really can. I can listen in, but I can't really participate too much because I'm in a paid training situation right now. But I can listen in.
Okay, great. You're fine. And we're waiting for Akeem to come on, and then we're going to start. I'm going to start by just doing this little thing. There's 5 ways to spell life, L-I-F-E. Can I give you one? Small l, capital I, small f, small e. Life is all about me, I. Me. Okay. Then another way to spell life is small l, capital I, capital F, small e. If I could only do it again, I think I'd do it a lot differently. Isn't that a good way? If I could only do it again. Another way to spell it is capital L, capital I, small f, capital E, a lie. I have been living a lie all my life. Now there's another way to spell life. Small l, small I, small f, small e. I live life with small letters. It's very mundane. I'm just living life. So we got 4 ways there. Now the way to really spell it is capital L, capital I, capital F, capital E. Life. And have it with meaning, purpose, and outcomes. Isn't that fun? And we're faith-based, and Jesus came and he said, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I come that you might have life and have it abundantly. All caps. Right? All caps. Isn't that good? Okay. Any thoughts on that one?
Good, that'll preach, Walt. That's good.
What's that?
Good, that'll preach, Art.
Okay. Yeah, it will. It will. Yes, it will. Okay. Bring us up to date. Travis, how was your week, quickly?
It was good. Like I said, had the last 2 weddings of my 5 weddings in 5 weeks. So I'm ready to be done with weddings for a little bit. And this week we started some more basketball and dance locations for Can Play, and excited just to get 50 to 100 kids at each one of those locations involved in different activities there. So pretty cool to see. We were able to get in touch with 2 Barnstormers dancers, which is an arena football league here. So they're leading 2 of our dance locations, and then actually just got a women's basketball player from Drake, an alumni there, to come in and help coach. So awesome to be able to utilize their platform, with these kids in the community, which is the whole point of what I want to do. So.
Okay. By the way, I talked yesterday with Emma, and Emma is down in Texas A&M, and
Okay.
she's from Kenya, and she was a basketball player at Swarthmore University and coached basketball at our Kibera slums schools, and then she's going here for a master's degree, and she's going to go for a PhD, and then she would like to go back to Kenya and figure out what God has for her there. Isn't that quite an interesting story?
That's awesome.
Structured sports brings you to different places and in your life so that you can begin to do some leadership things. Great.
Yeah.
Bring us up to date, Kenneth. As you're eating.
My week has been right. My week has been good so far. Spent a good time with a lot of youth that are in my youth group. Just being in relationship with them, spending time with them. I used my networking skills to find a spot in the Colin Powell gym so that I can spend more time with kids and do more like sports related things and spend more time together. So it's exciting, and I think there's just a lot of good things happening. So I'm happy.
Let's stop here for a minute, because do you know Tommy McBrayer?
I don't.
Tommy McBrayer has a thing called Don't Shoot Guns, Shoot Hoops. And he has a basketball program that he's put together in the neighborhood. By the way, in his lifetime, he's been shot 3 times.
Wow.
So he uses his experiences as a story. But he's going to have a tournament for 16 teams in the middle of November at the Colin Powell Center. I'll connect you with Tommy McBrayer.
Okay.
Because you never know. Okay?
You never know. Yeah.
You
Thank
never know. Okay, Trent, bring us up to date.
Things good. A lot of our missionaries are in town right now. We've got like a mission focused week coming up at the church. So we'll have a bigger outreach on Friday here in the neighborhood, giving out a lot of winter items and then street ministries and prayer. So yeah, been out.
Where are the missionaries from?
All over the world.
Okay, good. And Marquise? Marquise,
Yes, sir.
did you have a good week?
I have. I can't complain.
Good, okay. Now we're going to stop. We're going to move ahead in a minute. I'm going to share with you that John Turnipseed cannot be with us this morning. John Turnipseed is in the hospital. He's actually up at ICU, and he's had some problems with his heart. It goes back to drug days when he was younger, and it's a lot of the guys have had this problem with drugs, and later in life their hearts. And he is in ICU, and I'll send a little video to you after of him there, but he couldn't be with us today. But we want to pray for him. Now, did you watch the video? Did you watch the video of John on Fox News? Travis? Kenneth, did you get a chance to look at it?
No, I didn't. Sorry.
Trent?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think Marquise did. What did you get out of that video? What did you see?
I actually didn't watch the video, but I've been knowing who he was my whole life. I know I grew up with his son, so I know a little bit more, and I read the book. So I've been knowing who he was pretty much my whole life.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what I see is a man in transformation. I see a man that literally transformed, from being a part of the street life, going to prison, and really kind of doing something positive in the community. Something that I aspire to do. I know when I got out of prison, I actually used to go meet with him just so I can be around a person that has been doing things that I want to do. So.
Okay. And Marquise, you were in prison for 12 years.
11 years and about 9 months, yes.
Got it. And John was in for 10 years, different times. Yeah. Travis? What were you gonna say?
I was just going to echo kind of what Marquis said is, I think having the background and reading the book was helpful, and watching the video and just understanding how many second, third, fourth chances, John, had or took. And it was one of those things that eventually the one thing that changed was the grace of God, like, on his life, and him accepting, Jesus, and making that turn there. So I thought it was kind of cool just to see it from that perspective. And it doesn't always happen. It may not be the first time or the second time that we get something or turn something around, but I thought it was really cool just to see that all come into play, and see the video to support that along with the book. But obviously the challenge of doing what's right versus, protecting family and things like that, those are really challenging to make.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Trent?
Yeah, it's an amazing story of how God can change someone's life. And the thing that stuck out to me was just the small steps of development that he did. It wasn't, it wasn't like just a linear path. Like he did one thing and then all of a sudden here he is at the fatherhood program. I just saw there was a lot of small steps of him faithfully living out that transformed life in Christ. And then it manifested a lot of the fruit of it.
Okay. And Kenneth, you haven't seen that yet, but it's an important one to look at, okay? Because it's also a model of something that goes on here. Because it's a story about an old story. He had an old story. Now he has a new story. And he changed in between. And so my question that is, I think, a good question is, what's your old story? What's your old story? Travis, what's your old story?
So I don't know, I could relate it to kind of what we just talked about on Friday, probably, of 4 or 5 months ago. It was buying a house in Des Moines for a couple years, and potentially saving up to buy a house out in the suburbs somewhere else, or outside the urban area. But just the transformation of wanting to be a part of the community, wanting to be living in the community that you serve, versus the donut effect, or the donut hole, what we talked about in some of the first few classes, of living outside and in the gated communities or otherwise, and then coming in and doing the work versus actually being a part of the community there. So I think that changed my perspective a little bit there. But I think the old story, I'd kind of bounced around and moved around a lot from when I open enrolled for eighth grade. I spent 5 years at the high school, or junior high through high school, couple 2-3 years in undergrad. Then I moved out to San Francisco for 2-3 years, then Raleigh for 2 or so years. So I think it's just been moving around a lot. I don't know necessarily why I was moving around, or what, if I was running towards something or running from something or anything like that, but feels different more lately, to just be plugged into a community and living in that community and kind of putting down some roots. So
Well, what's interesting, just an FYI, the military people, when you're a military kid, you're moving all the time.
mm-hmm.
Because the military is moving the parents around, the mom or dad, whoever is the military person. And they're going all the time, and so you're just following them. And so you have no control over that. You're
Yep.
you're just one of these around the world people. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I don't know who I am.
Yep.
Trent, what's your old story?
I got a few old stories. I mean, before Christ, I really found Christ in a significant way in high school. Before him, I was confused, I was excluded, lonely, anxious. But then, when I really found Christ and received him as my own, I gained a ton of confidence. I feel secure, don't struggle with anxiety, work through my issues with anger. So, I mean, Christ has transformed my life. I think vocationally, I used to have a career in business. So I had an amazing, financially sustainable, great career. But then the Lord called me over to plant a church and do more urban community development. So I left that and now just serve the Lord in a new story of bringing transformation to my community in Loring Park. So got all sorts of old to new stories, and probably keep having those as I follow the Lord.
Good. Akeem, welcome. Where are you? Akeem. Hello, Akeem. Okay, he's not checking in. Okay. What? Marquise, are you still with us?
Hold
Okay.
on, I apologize. I'm here, Art.
Okay. Did you
Marquise said
see
he's
the?
not going to be able to talk. So
That's right. Akeem, did you see the John Turnipseed video?
The part 2 of the video or the video
The
that
one I
is.
sent out.
No, I have not seen it yet.
Oh, okay, okay. There's a story. John gives his old story, and now he has a new story. And we're just asking, what's your old story? And Akeem, what would you say your old story is? You know.
My old story would be growing up on the south side of Minneapolis,
Mhm.
kind of during Mr. Turnipseed's first story.
Yes.
So, I seen all of the bad stuff. I seen all of the good stuff. Like I told you before, Johnny actually grew up on the block away from me, like literally a block away.
Right.
So I was affected by all of those things. But for me, I took those things and I used them as like motivation. It made me want to show the real side of the neighborhood just because there's so much going on, because there's a survival mode going on that
Okay.
not a lot of people got to see the real essence of the neighborhood. And I am trying, actually, I am embodying the energy and the intelligence that was surrounded and engulfed in that neighborhood. And sadly, when I was growing up, it was all used for the wrong reasons. But now that I am older, and probably around like 15, I would say that would be the start of Mr. Turnipseed's second story. So
Okay.
I seen the turnover of all of the craziness from the neighborhood to people actually wanting their kids to succeed, allowing their kids to succeed and allowing their kids to be kids. We weren't forced to do certain things like maybe his generation was. So it kind of gave us a different outlet and different things to have the same energy, but to put it towards positive things. And that would be, my beginning. My beginning was through basketball and the way that I lived my life. I wanted to prove to people that Prince wasn't the only good thing that came out of South Minneapolis.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that was my beginning.
Kenneth, how about yours? What's your old story?
It's a very good question. Yeah, I feel like I'm one of the youngest here, so it's probably a little fresher for me. I've always had this just a strong desire to help people and to serve people in whatever way that I can. And so when I was younger, I, wanted to be a doctor, wanted to help serve the community in that way, become like a neurosurgeon of some sorts. And I just felt like the Lord pulling me away from that and, wanting me to focus more on, just the spiritual health of people and being in relationship with them and getting to know them and spending time with them as much as I can and just really getting to know people's story and counseling them and guiding them through that. So I feel like a lot of my old story was just kind of up until like my freshman year of college where um, I just felt like this is the way that God wanted me to help people. And then, after just years of being poured into by other mentors and other people in my life, I just really felt like the Lord was telling me it's time to change it up and to really do what, walk into like what he's called me to. So then I started going down this path of, pastoral ministry and all that stuff. And I feel like it's been great. And I feel like the
You're
person,
jumping ahead. You're jumping ahead because I wanted the old story.
yeah. So the old story is essentially just through the help of different mentors and other people, um, you know, they kind of showed me that what I was going through when I was younger, when I was like 18, 19, um, I had a good heart and a good like um, end goal in wanting to help and serve people, but the way to get there wasn't necessarily the way to do that. So there was a big change that happened when I was 19, and that was kind of what helped to make me the person that I am today.
Okay, good. Now, the next question is, it's important to bail it well. Your old story, bail it well. Does that make sense? Now, what's your new story? Travis, what's your new story? Bail it well. What are you doing now?
Yeah, I think I jumped ahead too in the first response, but I think it's just the, really being a part of the community that I live in versus living in one place and working in another
Okay.
place.
Okay,
So
great. You want to be incarnational in your neighborhood and make a difference. Okay.
Yep.
And Trent, what's your new story?
Yeah, my news story is now being a leader for our community and for the church in downtown Minneapolis.
And again, you've got a community, don't you? What's the name
Yeah.
of it?
Loring Park.
Loring Park. Okay. Kenneth?
Yeah, so now youth director at my church, wanting to help serve the youth that are coming to the church and in the area, and help them, mentor them, spend time with them, get to know them. That's kind of my new story now. And
What's the name of your community?
this is the like Green Central neighborhood.
Central neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we've got Akeem. Akeem, what's your new story?
My new story.
Bail it well.
My new story would be someone that is working with the people, for the people.
Okay.
That's basically, what I'm doing without all of the adjectives and
Okay.
extra verbs.
Great. And we've had Brandon join us. Hello, Brandon. Porter?
Say that again, Art.
You joined us. Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
Did you see the Turnip Seed video that we sent out? The link.
I thought it was the same one we watched last time.
This is the one that was on Fox News, Tom Lydon. Okay. And that was the story. So it's the old story and the new story. So we're just sharing, what was your old story? What was your old story? Just quickly.
Yeah, excuse the background noise. Yeah, old story, man. I think is unfortunately just typical of a lot of young black men that grew up in America. Um, Single mom, grow up in poverty, influenced by uncles who were in gangs and drugs and pimping, and just kind of going down that road. Yeah, I mean that's the old story.
Okay.
In a nutshell.
What's the new story?
Yeah, the new story is salvation in Christ, a restoration of my past, wife, 4 kids, pastor, just a new trajectory of my life. My kids have their father in their lives since they were born, and Lord willing, until they grow up, until they get older, and until I die, that I would leave a legacy for my family, for my kids.
Okay. Now what I'm doing here is trying to help organize a thought where what's your old story, what's your new story, and then what happened to change it? What happened to change it? Travis, what happened to go from the old to the new? What happened?
probably the pandemic, the beginning of the pandemic was kind of a way to reset my priorities. I moved back to Iowa, to the Des Moines area, and I found a church, and I started going to church regularly, Sundays, but also finding groups groups to attend on the weekdays as well. So different activities that way. Really just getting plugged in to a church family, to the faith community, and being able to be closer to home and back around the people that I love. So it took a big disruption in March 2020 through probably June 2020 for me to realize maybe my priorities were a little bit out of whack with what I was doing for a career and where I was spending my time on the weekends and things like that. So.
Okay. And then Trent, what happened? What caused your change?
God is the biggest thing for me.
What does that
yeah,
mean?
So it's the Lord calling me into something new, and then me choosing to be obedient and make a sacrifice to obey his calling.
What's a call? How did you get a call?
From the Lord, from reading his word, from prayer, from wise counselors in my life. That's what really went for me to change careers, specifically in vocations, to then go full-time into serving in Loring Park as a pastor.
Okay. And what would you say, Brandon? What changed you?
Yeah, I definitely would say just the same thing, man. I became a believer, and that was the tipping point. That was the turning point for me. I was able to go to my bad. Excuse that background noise, but I was able to go to. I had a teacher that was like, "Hey, you need to go to college," and I was like, "Well, how can I go to college? My grades weren't good, but I was a wrestler, and I was a really good wrestler. And she helped me find some schools to get that would accept me. But my grades were so bad that I couldn't go to a really good school. But I came up here to Iowa. When I came up to Iowa to wrestle, um, I was doing some stuff that I wasn't proud of, and went back home and was really feeling bad about it. And I went to go talk to somebody about it, and they kind of just gave me the gospel. When they shared the gospel with me, it just changed my view of everything, and that was a tipping point for me. The thing that turned everything around for me.
Great. Akeem, what changed you? Was there a change? Was there something that changed you?
Yeah, it was. Mine's is a little weird, but it's mine, so I'll own it. But my change came 7 years ago when I had my first child. All the questions that I had as a child, I realized that the adults in my life didn't answer them. All the things that I realized that I wanted as a child, I realized the adults around me didn't give me. So I dedicated myself to being the change, because I understand as an older person and being a younger person, I feel we learn more by what we see versus what we hear. So I am embodying the example that I want my son to be, and I am being everything that I felt that I needed, as far as a positive role model, as far as a positive influence. So for me, the change came from watching my son be born. I don't know if people have kids in here or if you've watched your wife or woman give birth. That is an amazing thing. And seeing that literally changed my life and my perspective, and it gave me new life. It gave me more motivation to do certain things and put myself in certain positions.
You said some good things here, Akeem. And one of them is the old days, men could not watch the birth of their children. They had to stay out in the conference room. Today, you're with your wife and you're seeing that baby come. Unbelievable. Secondly, you told us that you saw that the men in your life didn't help you, but you're going to be a man that helps them now. That's good. Kenneth, what changed you?
Yeah, so I would say two things. first, the gospel of Jesus Christ. I feel like I had the head knowledge of Jesus, but not the heart knowledge. And so once I understood who Jesus was through the lives of, and this is the second thing, mentors and other teachers in my life who loved me and showed me what it meant to, be like Jesus, I really felt like the whole trajectory, the whole path of my life just completely changed and went in a direction that I wasn't expecting.
Okay, good. Now I'd like to, we've done a half an hour of breaking in here, and I'd like to say the next thing we're going to talk about is the fact that life writes scripts for us, and I grow up in a world that writes a script for me. My life gets written by other people. Does that make sense? And one of the lies, what's that?
I say, are you saying like from the perspective of like your parents and the people like guardians and all that kind of stuff? They write the script for you.
And the culture. Let me give an example. Some of you have been raised in a gang culture. You've been raised in a city, and in the city there is a gang culture. Gang culture, and it's got a framework. Dog eat dog, big dog win. Does that make sense? Treat your whore like your wife and your wife as a whore. Whatever works, if you don't get it, somebody else will. Can I keep going? Do whatever, just don't get caught. That's stupid. Okay. You're on your own. Do what you have to. And it's better to be carried by 6 than judged by 12. Now, what's interesting is in the drug and the gang world, there's a life expectancy of about 24 years old. People get killed. You're going to do some serious hard time. Your body's going to be degenerated by drugs and by diseases. You're going to be in a gang, a family, and you're going to have a turf. You're going to have multiple violences. And you're going to have a power image, and you're going to be judged by the number of crimes you had, and how many drugs you used, and how many years you spent on drugs, and how many times you were in prison. Now, does that make sense? That's a script for the drug. If you're in a gang, you pay a price to get in, and you pay a bigger price to get out, and you're in the family, the gang family. And they've got a value system, and they write a script for you. This is what you do. I'm going to stop right there. Does that make sense? And anyone have anything to add to that, personally? Brandon, you understand that?
Yeah, I definitely understand that. I think it's twofold when gang is intertwined with family, so you have like a double expectation, you know. So yeah, I understand that.
What's the double expectation?
Yeah, I mean it's almost this dichotomy of like either you do how we do, or you're not really like one of us. You are one of us, but like that's just not how we get down. That's not how they get down.
Right. Akeem, does that make sense to you? The gang world? You were raised in it.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I just feel like you left out, the pecking order. Like no matter what your view is, if somebody up higher tells you to do something, it's whether you like it or not, it's got to be done.
That's right. There's a whole system in there, a gang structure. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now there's another kind. Now that's the gang in the inner city, but there's a world system, that's kind of an interesting one. The world framework is pride. I have to have pride in myself. I have to have possessions. I have to have things. I have to have power. I have to have position and promotions in what I do. I need to get promoted. I have to have a position in my life. I have to have passion, partners, and porn. I got to have all these things as I go along. Okay? And then I have to have prestige and perks. And it's important for me to be famous, and it's important for me to accumulate things. It's about me, want. How many people do I control? And all these things that are very important for fame, selfishness. If I don't promote myself, who will? I will lie, twist truth, and I'll be deceptive in order to get what I need. Does that make sense? Does it? Somebody raised in that? Okay, how about a corporate framework? Any of you in corporations? The corporate framework, it's important to be profitable. You've got to make money. A quarter up, a quarter down, a penny up, a penny down every quarter. You have to have growth and scale. It's got to be bigger, more. You do it with your head, not your heart. It's about getting things done. And it's not about heart, it's head. And it's now. And there has to be executive privilege. I've got to have things that come along with this. And instead of developing people, I use people. I use them. And so it's a corporate world that defines me, and I have to be a corporate person. Does that make sense? Anybody been in that? Trent, you been in that?
Yeah, I've literally been in the corporate world. Yeah.
What was it like for you?
It wasn't as cold as some of that what you were reading sounded like. There's parts of it that are kind and generous and focused on others. But yeah, on the ugly side of it, it can be very much about just growth. It can very much be about profit over people. Do whatever it takes to get it done.
Okay.
So I've seen the good and the ugly.
Then there's a religious framework. If you've been raised in a church, there's a religious framework too. Does that make sense? There's rules and regulations. Got to have a lot of rules. Got to keep the rules. And you have exterior comparisons. It's about how I look according to other people. I have a form of godliness, but I'm empty of any power. It's about church growth, butts, bucks, budget, buildings, and books. How many members do I have? Do I have a radio program, a TV program? How many books have I published? Number of service projects that we do. And we've got a lot of things that go on that, it's that old one about the speck in my brother's eye, but I don't see the log in my own. And there's a lot of... So when Jesus was here, he had the Romans on the one side in the military, but he had the Pharisees on the other side that were doing all this legal stuff and all this religious stuff. And all the names we give each other for titles. Does that make sense? Anybody raised in one of those? Okay, what's another framework? Anybody in the athletic world?
Sports.
Hakeem, what?
Um, excuse me. I would say sports is a framework. I wouldn't go as far as picking a specific athlete. I would just say sports in general, an athlete in general. Hockey, basketball, baseball, football, soccer. It really doesn't matter. It teaches you how to work with people that you might not like. It teaches you how to work with people, to make winning plays, not just working with people. You're actually working with people and meeting your goals. It teaches you perseverance. Sometimes you might not meet the goal in the time expected, and you can't just quit. You got to keep going. So,
Okay. And then that's a positive side to athletics. The negative side is I use it to get ahead, to build my reputation. Then I start out in Little League, and then I go to junior high, and then I go to high school, but then I want to get a college scholarship, and then I go to college, and I want to be the top person, and then I want to get a pro contract, and then I want to be the top dog. And so there's a hierarchy that we go up. And so you get all these athletes that play this athletic role about more, me, and they get to be their contracts, and they get their $1 million. And the interesting thing is that when it comes to the end, 4 years is the average stay in the NFL or the NBA, and 85% of them are bankrupt after 5 years, and they've lost everything because they haven't developed character. So John Wooden says, talent will take you to the top, but character will keep you there. So I've developed my talent, but I've never developed my character. And sometimes the professional athlete can be one of the worst people to be around. Okay, now I'm going to show you this piece right here. Do you see this? Can you see what I'm looking at here? This is a wire mesh. This is a wire mesh that's got these pieces to it. I bought this at the state fair for $2,500. Brandon, have you seen this? I paid $2,500 for this, and she brought it over and delivered it to me at the office. And she called it Passages. And I said, what is it? Why did you call it Passages? She said, my son was in drugs for 4 years, and I built this for him because he had to go through this to get out of that. So this is a very good, important story, because as I put this up here and I think about this, I have a script that I've been writing for my life about me that's been given to me by somebody else, but it's not my script, and it's not the script that God wants for me. It's the script that has been given to me by my culture, by my people, by my whoever. Am I making sense? God wants me to take my script off, and he wants me to go through this passage here, and he wants me to get cleaned up and come out with me and my script and me. So he wants to get my attention, so he throws a pebble. You ever been hit with a pebble? Comes off your, glad that's over. So then he says, okay, I'm gonna throw a rock. So I'm holding a rock here. You can't see it, but I'm holding a rock. And I had this is the rock that I had off the back of my head right out here in front of this building. When I was sawing a guy breaking into a car down the street, and I yelled at him, I said, "You cannot be breaking into that car, get away from there." I turned around and walked away, and he threw this off the back of my head. Okay. That hurt. That gave me a wound here. Well, I'm glad that's over. So then God throws a pebble, he throws a rock to get my attention. So finally he says, "No, you're not getting it." So he has to hit me with a brick. So he takes a brick. I lose my, I'm a football player, and I lose my knee. I lose my shoulder. I get hurt. I get fired. I go through a divorce or a bad time. I have an accident, and it changes my life. Something happens where he says, "Would you please take your script off and begin to crawl through this space here and get cleaned up and have some people come around and help you and advise you and begin to come off here a changed person that's the real you. It's your DNA." Okay? Now I'm just going to give an illustration of Jesus choosing his disciples, and one of them was Peter. Do you remember Peter? Jesus, what was Peter? Peter's script was fishing. He was a fisherman on the Sea of Galilee. And fishermen, they have a life. They have a lifestyle, they have a life, they have a routine. And Jesus went up to Peter one day and he said, "Peter, I want you to leave fishing and I want you to follow me." And Peter had to go, he had to leave fishing, and he started to go through this. Now, up here, this first one, Jesus was in a boat and he saw Jesus walking across the water. And he said, "Oh, Jesus, let me come out. Let me come out. Let me come to you." He said, "Come on out, Peter." So Peter came out and he said, "Ooh, this is rough. This is bad. I'm scared." And so Jesus had to pick him up and said, "Peter, it's okay. Keep following me." Then later, they went up in the Mount of Transfiguration, up on a mountain. And there was Moses and there was Ezekiel and Jesus. And Peter says, "Ooh, I want to build a monument to you three up here. I'm a builder, I'm going to build a monument." And Jesus said, "No, Peter, we have to go down. And we have work to do." Now, here, Jesus said, I'm gonna give my life up. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna be killed. And you're gonna deny me, Peter. And Peter said, "I'll never deny you." Here, Jesus was in trial. He was being killed, and Peter was accused of being one of the disciples, and he said, no. He denied Jesus 3 times, and all of a sudden, cock-a-doodle-doo, and the crow crowed. Finally, Jesus was killed, resurrected, and Peter went back to fishing. So Jesus was at the side, built a fire, said, "Bring the fish in." They said, "That's Jesus." Cooked. He said, "Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? Then feed my sheep." And Jesus said, "Okay, Peter." So Peter had to go through 3 years of experiences where he took this off and came out here and began to put his life together in a whole new way. Does that make sense? I showed this to the leader of John's gang in my office. And I put this in front of him. And I said, look at this and tell me what you see. And we looked at it. We looked at each other through this for 10 minutes. For 10 minutes. And I said, what do you see? He said, I see all the things I have to get rid of if I'm going to begin to make it. All the things I've got to get rid of if I'm going to make it. Now, I'm asking, if you've given up, have you given up your script? Have you come through this? Are you coming through it? Do you have people that are helping you and advising you as you go through? Am I making sense? And are you coming through and getting rid of the stuff that's your old scripts, your old story? And are you ready now to put on a new story? A new story, a new script, the real you, and are you doing what you're built to do? Have you come through this so that you are a transformed person who now wants to transform and be a transforming person and transform your community and the people around you and what you're called to do? Does that make sense? Okay. Now, I just want to stop. Does this make sense to you? Feedback. What did you see out of what we did here? Travis, what did you see?
To me, it looks like that's a pretty thick passage that they have to pass through. And somebody said it earlier, but it wasn't a direct path when we talk about John's video and such too. So I think that it's important to understand there's going to be some ups and downs. It's not a linear path to transformations. There's going to be things, the rocks, the pebbles, the bricks that might come and hit you, but be it knowing who you truly are. And it sounds like everybody on the call knows that comes through their faith. I think that's important to keep at the center and understand that, you got to start somewhere to get to the other side.
Okay. Trent?
Yeah, that's good, Art. It feels like a lifelong process of that. I think in some parts of my life I've transformed, and then in others it's like, yeah, Jesus still has me transforming in different areas. It's like that lifelong sanctifying process of learning and being shaped into who God wants me to be. That's a really helpful visual, though.
Isn't that good? Great. Kenneth?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with Trent on the whole lifelong thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as you were kind of talking, it just kind of seemed like I'm looking at that piece almost like a purging process, right? Like you're going through it and it hurts, it's painful, but everything that you don't need is coming off, and you're coming out of it a better person. And it's forming your character, forming the kind of leader that you want to be. But I think there's like mini versions of that, and then there's like the lifelong big tunnel of purging that you're going through. Yeah.
Brandon?
Yeah, I like it. I like the idea of the script being changed, as you go through. And I think that's important. I think when we talk about, the scripts part just really hit me hard because I think that's a part of my life, and not just in how I grew up, but in a lot of different areas. There's scripts laid out that you follow, and then I think for me, once I've kind of shed those scripts, it's just like, oh man, like I wasted a lot of time, trying to be something that I wasn't, or trying to be somebody to somebody, be something to somebody, so I could be impressive, or I could be down, or I could be whatever, and so, but just shedding that, I think it's I think it's good. I think it's a pretty good metaphor. I think it's an expensive metaphor. You probably pay too much for that art, but you know,
Best
24.
thing I ever did. Best thing I ever did.
Hey, but I like it.
Tell Justin I need this. He was going to put that up. Yeah. Okay, and Akeem?
Yeah.
So,
It was a nice example. I feel like, that thing represents the stages of life, our stages of life, and how we view things. I'm a very optimistic person, so I feel like if you look from the beginning and you can see the end, then you see that you have a long journey. But if you
okay.
can be in the moment, you'll realize that each of these spaces are exactly the same. So there's going to be ups and downs that you have to go through automatically. So there are inevitable things that are going to happen to you that you just don't try to make sense of. You just get through. And I think that teaches you to get through. So once you actually reach the third mod or the third place, you get to understanding those things a little better and a little faster. You get to see the signs and you understand the signs in code words a little better once you reach a certain stage or closer to the end. And I don't believe in the end. I believe life is a journey. So I don't believe will ever be an end. So I just think as you get closer to your higher vibration, you start to understand things differently and you respond to things differently.
Okay. Now,
Man,
if I had, go ahead.
I think that's Akeem. That idea of being present in those parts of the journey. I really appreciate that, man, because it's like you get you can get so focused on the whole thing and why is this happening to me? Why was I born into this? Why yada yada yada? But you won't understand those things. You won't even understand the transformation. You won't understand the itty bitty parts of it until you get past that and get beyond it and look back. And they say hindsight is 2020. You can look back and see, oh man, that's what that was. Or there's times I look back and I see like, Lord, I know why I went through that because now I'm more equipped to handle this in this situation. Or now, okay, so I had to learn a lesson for somebody else. I learned this lesson so that this man wouldn't have to go through this. And so I think you hit that spot on, man. That's key.
So,
Could I jump
that's,
in too, Art, for 2
yes,
seconds?
please.
I think I had like a similar situation here recently too, of like sometimes I think we focus too much on the end goal. I think it's important to have the end goal, but sometimes I forget to break down the big goals into smaller actionable, goals. So a friend of mine always said, like, if you get a flat tire on a car, what do? You change that tire. You don't slash the other 3 tires. And sometimes I find myself focusing on the end goal too much, where I get the flat tire and then I say, oh, I failed that goal. So, I'm just going to move on and do something different. So in that example, I'm basically slashing the other 3 tires and having to pay for 4 versus changing 1. So, yeah, I thought that was good, Brandon, Akeem, what you guys were saying on just building off that. I think it's important to have those small actionable goals. But to, what Art's been preaching to us too, just having the people around us to lift us up when one of those tires does go flat. If you don't know how to change it, calling on somebody at your table to help you change that tire. So.
Okay, which raises another question now. Who are the people that you're around? Who are the people that are around you that are helping you? Does that make sense? Now, I'll just tell you that as I look at my life, I did have a father. I had an intact family. I had a father that helped me. First step. Then I came up here and I had a thing called Young Life. And the leader was Phil McDonald, and I used to have a meeting with him every Monday for 9 years. 9 years every Monday. And he mentored me in Young Life. Then I had a job at Park Avenue Methodist for 20 years with Phil Heinerman, And I literally talked to Phil Heinerman 6 times a day and had breakfast with him every Monday for 20 years. Would you believe that? Isn't that unbelievable? Then I came to Urban Ventures, and I had a fellow who was a banker who went to prison for a year, who came out of that and joined us, and he and I started Urban Ventures, and we met every Monday and every day for about 15 years. Okay, now I'm just telling you, I've had people in my life that have been significant and helped me. Does that make sense? Who are the people in your life? And by the way, just look at what Jesus did. For 3 years, what did he do with his 12 guys? Didn't he spend time with them all the time? Didn't he give himself to them? Does that make sense? So you spend time with people that you are going to help and put through. And then who are the people that are spending time with you as you are going through? And who are they? Because you got to have, if you're alone, that's a problem. But how can you have people, and who are they? Does that make sense? Okay, now what is this?
Keep going, just show them a picture of that. And now it's active.
Yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Just a minute, guys. I have to stop because I have something that I want to show you, but I can't get it up right now. Because that's refusing mine. Yeah. Okay.
Art.
Now, can you see this?
No, they can't.
No, you can't see that.
So,
Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah. What's the So you're meeting with these guys every week. What was the content of the conversations? Obviously, you can't tell me everything over 20 years or 10 years or 15 years, but what did it look like? Was it just like getting to know me? Was there times where it was just like, hey, let me show you how to let me tell you how to do this or whatever?
That's a very important question. First of all, it was a friendship. And friendship doesn't have an agenda. Okay? You're friends, you meet. Secondly, we would talk about what's up this week. So I had a club every Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, and the questions would be, what are you doing in your club this next night? Thank you for that. What are you doing in your club Monday night? And what's your message going to be? And all these, there would be mentoring, there would be discussion, there would be teaching. Does that make sense? And then as I would grow, I would be in charge of a camp. And he said, what are you going to do when you're in charge of the camp? How are you going to structure that? And there was different, as we went through the years, there was different growth experiences that I would go through. And also problems that would go on. So here's one. Phil Heinerman and I would meet, and for 5 years, I was the youth director in the church and in the community, 50% in the church and 50% in the community. And then I would bring community kids into the church, which is a historic all-white church, but I would be bringing kids from the neighborhood in, and they were African American and Native American, and I would be mixing church kids with unchurched kids, white kids with all sorts of kids, and that was causing some problems with some of the families in the church. And there came a time in 5.5 years where I was in a board meeting, and my chairman of the Education Commission stood up and said, we are not going to renew Art Erickson's job description next year. And I was being fired. And the pastor stood up. Now remember, we've had all these Monday mornings, all these times. He stood up and said, you're not going to decide on Art Erickson's job tonight. You're going to decide on the tandem ministry of Art Erickson and Phil Heinerman, and he tied his job to mine. Now, is that a friendship? That's not a corporate job. That's a friendship. And so we talked for an hour and a half of really tough talk. And we won 17-4 in the board meeting, but we lost 600 members in the next 3 months. They just quit. They went out to the suburbs. Isn't that crazy? Now I'm just saying there will come times in your offices, in your churches, in your jobs that you're going to have crises, right? Say yes. Say yes. There's going to be crises. There's going to be troubles. There's going to be problems. And it's going to test your friendship, and it's going to test your ability to work things out together. And you're going to need to know that you got somebody who's with you. Because most senior pastors would usually put their arm around you and say, it's good to have you. What are you going to do now that you're going to grow up? What's your next thing you're going to do? Or they just let you go. You know, time to go. So I'm just saying that it's important to have people around you that are with you and helping you. And now we're going to look at this sheet, because this next sheet is when you come out of this, this mesh, and you come out and you're going to be a transformational person because you've been transformed, and you're going to transform. You need to have in your community, in your area, you need to have a board of directors and some advisors, some people around you that are going to help you. Does that make sense? Now, I'm going to suggest some people. The first one I'm going to suggest is the one just on the right of the top that says legal. You need a lawyer. You need somebody who understands law and the law and legal things for all sorts of reasons, that you do things right, that you know how to put a 501c3 together, that you understand how organizations are structured and need to be structured, how the government structures them, and you're lining up with government procedures and processes. You need a lawyer. And by the way, you don't need 3 lawyers. You need 1 lawyer. Okay, just one person that knows what they're doing. Because lawyers have a lot of disagreement among them, and you don't want to get into fights. But you want a good lawyer. I'm going to stop and say, do you have a lawyer? Do you have a lawyer in your friendship? You do. Okay. Is there anybody that doesn't have a lawyer? You don't have a lawyer? Okay. It's important to get one. Okay. Now, the next thing to the right is church. I want to be connected to churches. They're in my community. There are all kinds of churches, aren't there? First of all, there's Protestant churches and there's Catholic churches. What's interesting about Protestant churches is they do church. They do church. The interesting thing about Catholic Church is they do parishes. They divide the city up into parishes, and they have a church in each parish. Protestant churches just have a building, and people drive in and drive out, drive in. The Protestant churches have to have parking lots, okay, where people can park and then go back out. Catholic churches don't need parking lots because people walk. Their parishes, they walk. Isn't that interesting? Now, what's interesting about that is I've been in this neighborhood for 55 years, and I've counted 67 churches that have left the city and gone out to the suburbs. All Protestant. They've left the city. The Catholic churches are still there. They're parishes. And I've had some wonderful relationships with a couple of Catholic churches. One of them was a priest, Father Kevin McDonough, who was the vicar to the Archbishop in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And Kevin McDonough would speak for me at different events that I had. And I got to know him, and I went to church. I went to a Catholic church for a year. And I went to Kevin McDonough's church. And I met with Kevin on a Tuesday morning in my office, and I said, Kevin, I'd like to have communion from you. I'm a Protestant, and I'd like to have communion from you, the priest. He said, I've studied law in Rome, church law, for 3 years in Rome. He said, I am an expert in church law. I have one question for you. Have you given your life to Jesus Christ? I said, yes. He said, I will give you communion. That was huge, because there's a lot of priests that wouldn't do that. But there's a lot of Protestant people that would say, you go to a Catholic church? You're talking to a priest? Am I making sense? So I'm just saying there's all kinds of churches, all kinds of people. Now, here's what I do. 3 Sundays ago, and I do this on a yearly basis. 3 Sundays ago, I went to 12 church services in our neighborhood for 10 minutes each. I drive to the church, go in, and look for 10 minutes and listen. Then I go to the next one, and I look and listen. I go to the next one, look and listen. I go to the next one and look and listen. I love to do it in the summertime because some of them are outdoors. And I go to the outdoor services. And I just want to see who's in the church, how many, where do they come from, what kind of service do they have, what's the sermon like, so I get to know my pastor friends, and I go to their churches. Now, what was funny about this is Marquise said, you came to my church. This is 4 weeks ago. Marquise said, you came to my church. You're the only white guy there. Okay. So I surprised everybody by coming into the service. But that's because my neighborhood. I wanted to go over to Macedonia Church and see what's going on. Isn't that fun? Okay. I want to stop right there. By the way, I went to City View. Brandon, Kenneth, I went to City View.
I saw you.
I know you did. I saw you. And it's always fun to go to the churches and see the different people and what's going on over there. Okay, so you got legal, you got to have a church, relationships with pastors and people, lay people. Now, the next one you have to have is you have to have a finance and an accountant. You have to have somebody who's an expert in finances, somebody who knows money, how to account for it, how to keep it, how to report it, all of the different government things you've got to have for accountabilities and accountants and money keeping. That also gives you credibility with your funders. They have to know that you are taking care of money. Don't they? Hello? So you have to have an accountant who really is an expert in that. Any questions? Any thoughts? Any additions? Okay. I'm not hearing anything. Okay.
I guess I can jump in. I have a question on that, on how well you know the folks that are helping you with those finances and accounting.
Yeah.
Maybe that's on when you got started at Urban Ventures or otherwise. As the treasurer on my board, I didn't necessarily have a personal relationship with before, but that was kind of a challenging role to fill when I was recruiting a board of directors, mostly because of, I don't know, I feel like it takes a lot of trust to hold a position like that.
Oh, it does take trust. And by the way, they're very busy people, so they're hard to get to know sometimes. Does that make sense? They are busy. But we now, let me give you an example of how important that was. We had Whiffley was an organization that I got to know the president of, the head person, and he became a person on our board. And what he would do is we would do all the books before the tax break. We would do the books. He would come in and do our books in January and February. They would donate their time, by the way, because they weren't that busy then. And so they would come in and do it and report for us so that I had our books completed. I had our financial reports completed by the end of February. And I could then get out our annual report at the beginning of the year. Other people have to wait until after taxes, right? And they get their annual reports out after July. We could get it out right away. Isn't that amazing? And because they had some freer time, they did that and did it free. So we had that donated. That was an important piece. Okay? Okay, anyone else? Some of you may not be at the place in your organization where that's what you are doing now. It's being done for you. So you're part of an organization that's doing that, like Kenneth and Brandon. But if you're doing it your own organization, then you have to have somebody that does this. The next thing that I put down here is neighborhood NGOs, nonprofits in the neighborhood. Now, it's important to have relationships with other nonprofits. Part of the problem is nonprofits are very protective of each other. The elbows are out because they're all raising money from people and they're in competition with each other. And so we're very careful about who we talk to and how and why and get together. And we're not going to do things together. We're siloed, and we have our elbows out. Does that make sense? I use the illustration of I walk into a funder's office and I see somebody else from another nonprofit there, and we don't talk because he's going in to talk to him, she's going in to talk to them, I'm going in to talk to them. I have to keep my distance. Okay. But if we can get by that, if we get past that and build relationships that aren't dependent, that's really important. The next board or advisor kind of person is government. And I have to be relating to my government. I have to know them. For instance, when we were going to do some fundraising, we wanted money for the Colin Powell Center, so we were trying to get the bonding bill from the state, and I had to get to know the governors. By the way, don't get anybody on your board who's an active government person, because they are very politically associated. Have somebody who is out of government, retired, or out of government, a past government person, not somebody necessarily in it. They understand government, but they're not part of it. Does that make sense? I mean, I'll just leave that there because it's important. Now, what about education? Because education, down on the purple one, I want to be connected with schools. I want to be connected with, in my neighborhood, I had a background of going to Young Life high school, doing Young Life work with high school kids. When I came to Central neighborhood, I had to go to the high school, Central High School, Bryant Junior High, Wilder Elementary School, Anderson Elementary School. I would go to the different schools for lunch and meet the kids. And I would sit at lunch and I would meet the kids at the high school, at the junior high, at the elementary. Give you a story. At Central High School, as the neighborhood was changing in terms of its geography, in terms of the ethnicity, I would walk into the Central High School lunchroom. All the white kids sat at one end, all the black kids sat at that end, and all the mixed kids sat in the middle because they didn't know what they were. So as this came out and we got stronger and stronger and we had the black rights and all that, it turned out if anything black is black. So they could then, when that came out, then they could meet with the black kids. Okay? Now I'm going to give you another illustration. At Bryant Junior High, all of the stairways of 3-story building, all of the stairways, this was a stairway for black kids, this was a stairway for the Native American kids, this was a stairway for the white kids, this was a stairway for the Hispanic kids. When I would go into the lunchroom, they would sit with each other, not together, individually, around the lunchroom. Now, I did a strange thing. I walked in at Bryant Junior High, I walked into the lunchroom, and I sat at the first table, which is a black table. I sat down and sat there. The kids came up before they knew me. They came up, and they wouldn't sit at that table with me. They sat at the next table. And I rearranged the entire lunchroom that day by sitting at that table, okay? Because that's the way kids were. As they got to know me, then we would we'd do so. Now, by the way, at Bryant Junior High, I just want to share this story because it was a very important one. If I would meet black girls in the hallway and I'd say, "Hi, Joyce," they would walk right by me and ignore me. They wanted nothing to do with me. So we began to take kids out to the roller gardens on Friday nights and put them on skates and put wheels underneath them. And when they would go out there with us, we'd have 50 kids in the bus, and we'd go out to the roller gardens, and we would put skates on them, and they didn't know how to skate. They would be all over you hanging on, saying, "Help me, help me, help me." And you'd guide them around the skating park, and you'd teach them to skate, and then they would get confidence, and they would learn to skate. And then you see them in the hall. "Hi, Art. Hi, Art. Hi, Art." We broke it down. We broke it down. Does that make sense? Am I making sense? That you use education. You go to where your kids are for lunch. And you do things with them, and so that's one kind. Then they go to college, so you got to get to know the colleges, and then the seminaries, because you have to know the seminaries because they're preparing the pastors to do this, and pastors, they're getting theology but they're not getting sociology, and we're doing sociology. Does that make sense? So we reach out to the schools. Going to stop. Any questions? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yep.
So as far as, okay, so you have your thing, your peanut or whatever you want to call it, and for many of us here, I think um, it's gonna be religious, whatever that religion is. Um, um, I know for me, um, when I was doing my wrestling club over on the north side, we were explicitly Christian. Um, how do you rectify the involvement with government, education, and corporate, and not even involvement, just like how do you keep your identity pure and what you're trying to do without succumbing to the pressures of this, well, we only give money to non-religious organizations, or we don't want to be tied up with the organization because it's religious, because our people in our corporation won't give, or stockholders, and education, which is turning explicitly not religious. How do we get in? You want people, you want to come in the classroom and eat with kids, but we know where you're from and what you're doing. You're trying to talk to kids about Jesus, yada yada yada. So, you have any experience? I'm sure you do. Advice, wisdom, whatever in that aspect.
You are asking a very important question. You really are. Okay? And I don't want to spend a lot of time on that right now, Brandon. But that is something we will talk about.
It's a big question.
It's a biggie.
That's cool. Okay, we can talk about
Hey,
that.
That's a big one. Yes.
Can I just say something really quick to that point?
Who's speaking?
This is Nisa.
Hi, Nisa.
Hey, Art. So just as real quick, I know you don't want to touch on it exactly, but my husband and I, we do youth programming inside of the middle schools and the high schools. And our program is a Christian-based program, but on certain nights, so like on Tuesdays, for instance, will be like our worship night where we talk about God, we pray and things like that. And then on Thursday nights, we would do more of like just healing circles, just general talking and things like that. And you can still get support in those areas. It's just that I don't know how to explain it. I know my husband, he knows all the ins and out about that. But I know we had one night where we would do our Christian stuff, and then another night where it was just kind of like strictly just like healing circles, talking to the youth, getting to know them, doing games, going on field trips and things like that. And then we're still able to get supports from those people who say, hey, I don't necessarily support, Christian base or whatever, religious, whatever. But we do it in a way where it's like, okay, on this night is this, they can choose to come. And on this night, this is what we do. And the kids still choose to come, and the supporters still choose to support. I don't know what it looks like, but I know that's what my husband and I are currently doing in the school. When we're in the school, we can't talk about Jesus. But when we get them outside of school and when we're doing our program with them, it's fair game.
Okay. Now, again, we're opening up a topic that's very important, but I'm going to keep going on this right now. But we're coming back to that. Thank you, Nissa. Thank you, Brandon, because this is good. Okay. Now the next one over on the circle here is corporate, because if you're going to do anything, you need money, and the corporate are the people that have money, and the corporate are the people that have jobs, and the corporate are the people that are running the businesses, right? Oh, is that important? And so how do you get to know corporate people? First of all, I learned that when I call a meeting, not many people come, but if Colin Powell calls a meeting, I get 45 CEOs. So we got Colin Powell's name. So we got somebody who kind of sponsored us in the sense that when they came or they did something, people would respond. So it was important to get that sort of reference. Another thing that happened was CEOs, I don't know if you know this, but CEOs have lunch together once a month. And I would find out where the CEO lunch was, and I put my suit on and I went to lunch and never got kicked out. And I would sit at the lunch with the CEOs, and at the end, everybody would get in a line and go up and welcome them and thank them and all of that. And I'd be the last one in the line. And I'd go up and I would say, hi, my name's Art Erickson, and I'd like to, the guy who was speaking at this one time in St. Paul, I'll give you a story, was Brad Anderson. Brad was the head of Best Buy. He was the CEO of Best Buy. So I went up to him, I waited in the line, I went up to him and I said, Brad, my name is Art Erickson, and we're trying to build the Colin Powell Center in South Minneapolis. And he said, Art, where? I said, 35W in Lake Street. He said, no, where? I said, well, 4th Avenue in Lake Street. No, where? I said, between 4th and Clinton and 29th and Park. in Lake Street. He said, I know right where that is. I said, how do you know? He said, my dad is a Lutheran pastor, Messiah Lutheran, and I've lived in that neighborhood for 12 years. Let's go have coffee. He ended up giving us $500,000 for the gym and $2 million out of Best Buy over the years for the Colin Powell Center and what we're doing. And he's still a friend. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Now I'll give you one more story of a CEO. I may have given it to you. If I did, because it's a really important one to me. But Harry Davis, African-American leader with the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, did I tell you this? Gave me an invite to Bobby Piper, and I went down to Bobby Piper's office, Piper Jaffrey Hopwood, big financial firm. And I spent 20 minutes telling Bobby what we were doing, and he said, stop, Art, stop. When you meet with a person like me, you got 2 minutes. And you better say it in 2 minutes, because I don't listen more than that. And he said, I haven't listened to you for 20 minutes because you just went on and on and on and on. She said, what are you doing? So I had to tell him in 2 minutes. But I learned a lesson that when you're with CEOs and you're with corporate leaders, you better bail it very well. Don't talk a lot. Don't talk a lot. Always ask them when you go in, how much time do I have? Because they'll tell you, you got 15 minutes. But you got 10 minutes, and then I'll keep it to 10 or 15. But bail it. 2 minutes, and then what you're doing. So when you're with corporate people, you have to bail it well. Am I making sense? Okay? And you'll find if any of them come to your church, they're very specific. You want to know what you're doing, what's your vision, what's your plan, what's your program. Okay, the next one is an event planner. You have to have an event planner, somebody who plans events. Now, I don't know if you've ever been an event planner, but event planners never have their name on anything. In fact, if you go to an event, you never know who the event planner is because they don't advertise themselves. Okay? Unless something goes wrong, the speaker doesn't show, the music doesn't show, the food doesn't come, things aren't right, then everybody wants to know who the event planner is. But if everything goes okay, nobody knows. But they're the ones that make it happen. And you got to have somebody that does that. They know how to lay it out and make it work, and everybody gets there, they get it on time, it goes well, it's all finished well, and it produces what you want. That's an event planner. Does that make sense? Are you an event planner? Do you know an event planner? Do you have an event planner? That's crucial. Going to stop. Any questions, any thoughts, any ed? Okay? The next person on your board or advisors is a mental health person or somebody in the social work area. They're in the social work or the mental health area. Now, mental health is extremely important today. Mental health, I have had 5 calls this week with leaders, people, that I have shared. I just shared that we have a mental health person on our board, and they said, I have a mental health problem in my life. One is a pastor, one is a senior executive at an organization, another is a guy who coordinates CEOs and has meetings with them. Different people have said to me and shared with me that they are experiencing mental health issues. Our kids are experiencing mental health issues. Brandon, do you have kids in your program that have mental health issues?
Yeah, I did. Yep.
Yeah. We do. They do. And so we have to have somebody in that area. The next one up is marketing and publication. You have to have somebody who knows how to market what you're doing. They understand marketing, getting it out, social media, and publishing things for you, letters, information, getting words, your website. How do you present yourself? How do you present yourself publicly, and how do you market yourself? That's huge. You got to have somebody on your team that does that. The next is development and sales. Development is how do you raise money? And sales is different from marketing. Marketing gets the word out. Sales gets it in. Sales gets it in. It makes the sale. It brings it in. So you have to have somebody who's marketing and publications, and you have somebody in development who brings it in. Making sense? The last is human resources, HR, because you have to know on your team that they help you understand what it is you're doing, and then who you have to have around you to get it done, and then who those people might be, and how to put things together in job descriptions and all the other things that go on with making it happen, having a resource person. So if I'm going to be transformational, my board and my advisors, I have to have a legal lawyer, I have to have church relationships, I have to have financial accountant, I have to have neighborhood NGO relationships, I have to have government understanding, I have to have education, I have to know where the kids are, I have to know how kids get educated, I have to know how the different kinds of things there are. Corporate, I have to have corporate relationships because they got resources, they do the businesses. I have to have an event planner who can help me put things together and make it work. I have to have mental health advisors that can help me, and I can put people to them. I need marketing and publications. I need development and sales, and I need human resources. Now, I'm going to stop. That's a lot, isn't it? But if I'm going to be transformational, these are the kinds of things that help. And I have to take my time and get to know these people and build relationships with them, and then pull it together. I'm going to stop. Feedback, questions, additions, comments.
Are these segments, do you have someone on your actual board from all of these, or are these just in your network of advisors for Urban Ventures?
Right now, we don't have a board this big. We have 9 on our board. We're adding to it. At Urban Ventures, we had this. At Park Avenue, we had this. This is a board. 12 people. We had 12 people on the board. And we had somebody that represented. For instance, our government, we had Al Cui on our board for about 10 years. Al Cui used to be the governor. And I'll tell you, I've never had anybody help me more than Al Cui. He understood how to get things done. He spent a lot of time with me. We have a mental health person on our board here. You talked with her 3 weeks ago. She gave us mental health help and perspective. Melinda Cathy was her name. And she's good. She's really good. She helps the kids too. Questions? Thoughts? I hope it's not overbearing. I hope it's not overwhelming. I hope it just puts out a tool that helps us see that if I'm going to be transformational, these are the different elements that come around that help transform things. Now, Trent, do you have an event planner that works with you on the things that you're going to do in the future?
I have support. Yeah, people who
Okay. Makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. That person is not me. So.
Okay. What are you?
I'm much more of a visionary leader that can pull these people together. But
Okay.
yeah, getting bogged down in the details of event planning is not. I can do it, but I don't find joy in that.
You let them do it, don't you?
Oh yeah.
Yep. You show up and you do your thing because you're the speaker. You're the articulator. You're the leader. But they're setting it up for you. That's huge. Okay. Other thoughts?
All right, let me ask you a question. In
Yeah.
your experience, how have you avoided getting the wrong people onto your board?
Just a minute. Say that again.
How have you avoided getting the wrong people onto your board and advisors?
That's going to be an important one. I didn't always make it right. For instance, I wanted a neighborhood person on our board. I wanted a neighborhood person on our board. So I put a woman that lived just across the street in one of the houses here in Crack Alley. She's a welfare mom. And she was helping us in our store that was getting food out to people and doing different things. She was volunteering in the store with our staff and our people. And she was on our board. And we were doing the budget for the year. And she saw that the director of the program that we had that got food and clothing and furniture out to people made $35,000. She saw that Judy Jones was getting $35,000, and she was getting her welfare check. You understand? She was. And she got furious that Judy was making so much money. She couldn't handle budget. She was neighborhood, but she couldn't handle budget. And she blew up. And I had a problem for about 3-4 months. Now, what I found out was I had to have somebody on our board from the neighborhood who understood the finances. So I found out that Joyce Gill, one of the kids in our program at Park Avenue, African American, who we knew well, who came through our programs, was now the bank president over at Wells Fargo 3030 Nicollet, right over here. So I asked Joyce to be on our board, and Joyce was an African American neighborhood person on our board who understood finances. In fact, she got $25,000 for us a year from Wells Fargo. Isn't that, you see the difference?
Yeah.
And I'm just telling you that there's other stories like that, but that's a pretty important little story there. You got to get the right people.
Yeah, okay, that's helpful.
Okay. Good question. Thank you. Okay, we come today through your old story, your new story, and how did you get transformed, to going through what are your scripts, and God helping you get through this to get to your script, and now you're a transformed person. How am I going to transform my neighborhood, and how do I, here's a tool that helps me understand the scope of what transformation requires and looks like and has to have a team for. That's been our time together today. Has this been helpful?
It's been great, Art. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, who spoke? Was that Darby?
There was.
Hi, Darby.
Good to see you.
It's good to have you, buddy. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna close out. It's 12:49. I just want to share with you again that John Turnipseed is in the hospital. He's in ICU actually, and they're examining his heart because he's had some heart problems, and he's doing much better. I'm going to send you a 15-second video of his shoot this morning, and I'd like you to be praying for John because he's got some health issues, and we want to see him get healthy. And so this is helpful. Any last comments that anybody wants to make? Brandon, I always appreciate your insights.
Thank you, Art. Appreciate that, man. Appreciate you for all you're doing for us.
Okay, I'll be calling this week again. Kenneth, appreciate your insights. Okay, and Trent, you've got some things going on this week that are pretty big, aren't they?
Yeah.
With your group in here from the missionaries and all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and Darby, I want to talk with you later about Richfield. Okay. And is Nisa still with us? Maybe not. Okay. We'll see you next week. Thank you. Take care. Yeah, you can get up.